The Alpha King came for a debt, but left claiming a heart. One command, "You'll do," changes both their destinies forever. That action turns his crown into a burden he'd die to protect. But when the price of mercy rises again, will love be enough? If your heart is gripped, make sure to subscribe to this channel, so you don't miss stories like this. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far our pack reaches. Let's see how it all happened. Chapter 1. The marble hall pulsed with fear. Chains clinked, voices trembled, and Oscar, the Alpha King, sat upon the obsidian throne that gleamed like frozen night. His gaze cut across the kneeling debtors, each a number, each a failure. Mercy was weakness, weakness toppled kings. Next, he said, voice smooth as glass over steel. Another trembling merchant crawled forward, his scent thick with terror. The council scribes noted the figures, debts, losses, excuses. Oscar's mind barely registered them. These tribunals had become ritual. Punishment kept order. Order kept him alive. A decade of conquest had built this empire on obedience and silence. Yet lately, silence felt heavier. It echoed too loud. He dismissed the man, motioned for guards to drag him away, and exhaled slowly. Inside, the wolf prowled. "We are dying of sameness," it whispered. "Your Majesty," murmured his advisor, Quincy, bowing low. All accounts settled, save one. Oscar lifted his eyes. The Verena family, sire. Healers by trade. A minor debt, unpaid for 3 years. Healers. Old blood. Dangerous if disloyal. Oscar's fingers drummed the throne arm. The wolf stirred again, claws scraping bone. He rose. "Prepare the horses. I'll collect this one myself." The hall erupted in whispers as he strode out, cloak sweeping the stone. Behind him, thunder rolled across the mountains, as if the world sensed the coming fracture. The beast within him rumbled, drawn not by duty, but by something unnamed waiting beyond those hills. Chapter 2. The night wind carried pine and frost. Hooves struck rhythm into the earth as Oscar rode through the narrow forest pass. He told himself it was routine, inspection, intimidation, return. Yet his chest felt caged. The further he rode, the louder his heartbeat drummed against the wolf's growl. When dawn cracked over the valley, the Verena estate came into view, crumbling walls, fields long dead, and a single chimney coughing pale smoke. Poverty. Pride. Both stank of defiance. Guards dismounted first, surrounding the cottage. A woman stepped out. Barefoot. Mud on her hem. Krista Verena. She stood between the soldiers and 2 frightened children, chin raised. Her scent hit him, wild jasmine threaded with iron. The wolf inside him went still, then lunged forward. "Where's your father?" Oscar demanded. "Inside," she answered, voice soft but unshaken. "He's ill. He can't pay you." Her calm infuriated him. It fascinated him more. "You speak for him?" "I speak for those you would crush," she said. "But if you came for silver, there's none left." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Only the wind moved through the pines, whispering secrets. Oscar stepped closer, searching her eyes. Something flickered there, fear, yes, but layered with something stronger. Faith? He turned sharply to his captain. "Bring the debtor out. I'll settle this now." As he said it, the wolf whispered again, "You're not here for the father." When her gaze met his again, the pull became undeniable, a scent of fate he'd spent a lifetime denying. Chapter 3. The old man coughed blood onto the snow as guards held him upright. "Please, Alpha King. Mercy, just time. I'll repay what I owe." Oscar studied him, bored. "Your time expired 3 winters ago." He signaled for the guards to seize the livestock. Krista stepped forward, fury blazing where fear had been. "Take the land, not them. The children will starve." He turned, surprised by her audacity. "I warned you," he said, voice low. "Every debt has a price." "Then take me," she whispered. "I'm worth more to you alive than what's left here." For an instant, the air froze. Every soldier stared. Even the wolf hesitated. Oscar approached, towering over her. Snow fell between them like scattered ash. He inhaled her scent again, pure, fierce, wrong. The beast inside him roared, "Mine." He tilted her chin up with a gloved finger. "You'll do." Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Her father collapsed, sobbing. Krista did not flinch. "You'll come with me," Oscar said. "The debt dies with your obedience." He turned before she could answer, motioning for his men. As the carriage doors slammed behind them, he told himself it was logic. Collateral. A healer's skill had value. But deep within, something older than reason laughed, a sound that promised ruin and rebirth alike. The king's fortress awaited, and with it, the first crack in the man who thought he feared nothing. Chapter 4. Blood splattered across the stone floors, dark and steaming under torchlight. A soldier writhed, clutching his thigh where a blade had opened him deep. The scent of iron filled the air, sharp and wild. Oscar's wolf prowled beneath his skin, restless, ready to hunt. "Stand back," he ordered, voice low and commanding. The others obeyed instantly. Then she moved. Krista. The small healer walked through the circle of guards like she belonged there. Her bare feet whispered against the floor, her dark hair falling loose down her back. She knelt beside the bleeding soldier, her hands trembling, yet her gaze steady. When her palms touched the wound, light bloomed between her fingers, silver, alive, sacred. The soldier gasped. Flesh sealed beneath her touch. The bleeding stopped. The hall went silent except for the sound of ragged breaths. "Which blood?" someone whispered. The word hung in the air like a blade. Oscar's gaze darkened. His wolf surged forward, snarling, torn between awe and threat. He stepped toward her, slow, deliberate. "What did you just do?" His voice rumbled through the hall like thunder. Krista looked up. "I saved him." "By what power?" "By the only one that listens," she said softly. Defiance flickered in her tone. "Dangerous. Beautiful." He should have silenced it, but something inside him hesitated. The court murmured. He felt their fear twisting into questions. "Enough," Oscar commanded. "Take her back to her quarters. No one speaks of this." No one. When they were gone, silence flooded the hall again. He could still see the faint shimmer her light had left behind, like moonlight spilled across stone. His wolf pressed against the walls of his mind. "She's not ordinary." Oscar gritted his teeth. "She's leverage." The beast laughed softly, low and sure. "She's yours." That night, he stood on the balcony of the fortress, the cold wind biting his skin. Below, the forest whispered. The moon watched. Inside his chest, something shifted, a pull, a pulse, a warning. He didn't know her yet, but already, she was undoing him. Chapter 5. Morning light spilled through the glass panes of the great hall. Servants moved quietly, afraid to draw attention. The court still whispered about the healer who'd bled light. Oscar sat on his throne, staring into the empty air. He should have ordered her executed. Instead, he had summoned her. She entered barefoot again, chin lifted, not a trace of submission in her posture. "You were reckless yesterday," he said evenly. "I was human," she replied. His eyes narrowed. "You risked your life without permission." "I saved one," she said. "You end hundreds without reason." "We are not the same." The words struck deeper than she knew. His hands flexed against the armrests. "You forget who you're speaking to." She met his gaze calmly. "Do you?" For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then he rose, every movement sharp with control. "You test my patience, girl." "I test your heart," she said quietly. "But perhaps you don't have one." His wolf lunged. His hand moved faster than thought, but stopped inches from her face. She didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. "Why don't you fear me?" he demanded. "Because I've already lost everything you could take." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, he saw the grief she tried to bury. He exhaled slowly, lowering his hand. "You'll have new quarters in the West Wing," he said, turning away. She blinked. "Not the dungeon?" He glanced back. "No. I don't waste rare things in darkness." "Is that mercy?" His lips curved slightly. "No. Strategy." But as she left, he realized his chest was tight, his pulse uneven. He'd spent years mastering power, yet a single healer's defiance had shaken his throne. That night, her voice haunted him. every word replayed in the hollow chambers of his mind. He dreamed of her pulse beneath his hand, the glow of her magic, warm, forbidden, alive. Chapter 6. Dusk fell with the scent of blood. The fortress roared with chaos, shouts, steel, fire. Rival alphas had come to challenge his reign. Oscar shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, fur bursting through flesh. The wolf took control, savage and glorious. He tore through attackers, claws ripping flesh, teeth crushing bone. Then pain. A silver blade buried deep in his shoulder. His roar split the air. He staggered, his strength faltering, his vision swimming in red, yet he struck the striker. Through the haze, she appeared. Krista. Running toward him, skirts torn, eyes blazing. "Don't move," she whispered. Her hands pressed to his wound. Light exploded between them. The pain turned to heat, to fire, to something alive that bound their souls together. When the light faded, his shoulder was whole. But across his chest, a mark glowed, a crescent of fire that pulsed with his heartbeat. And when he looked at her, he saw it mirrored on her collarbone. Their marks. The same. She gasped, realization dawning. "What did I?" He seized her wrist, voice rough. "Say nothing." Around them, the soldiers stared in shock. "The Alpha King has been marked," someone whispered. His gaze silenced them all. "Anyone who speaks dies." They lowered their heads. When she tried to pull away, he didn't let her. "You should have let me fall," he said, voice shaking with something between anger and fear. She looked up, eyes wide. "I couldn't." For a moment, the battlefield vanished. The noise, the flames, all gone. There was only her heartbeat echoing in his chest, her scent filling his lungs, and the burning truth written across their skin. "Mine." His wolf held the word inside him, primal and unrelenting. He turned sharply. "Take her to the healer's wing," he ordered. "No one enters. No one speaks." As he walked away, the fire on his chest pulsed again. Not pain, not power. Something deeper. Something that terrified him more than any war ever could. Chapter 7. Whispers filled the fortress like wind through broken glass despite the warning. Servants bowed lower, guards spoke softer. Everyone had seen the faint silver glow branded over the Alpha King's heart, an Omega's mark. Oscar stood before his mirror, the burn beneath his tunic pulsing to her heartbeat. The sight of it made him furious. Made him alive. Both were dangerous. "Your Majesty," General Hayden said carefully behind him. "The Council demands an audience." Oscar turned, eyes sharp. "Do they plan to question my bloodline now?" "No, sire." "Your bond." He laughed once, low, humorless. "Then let them choke on curiosity." In the hall, moonlight carved silver bars across the marble. The elders waited, cloaked in judgment. "You bear an Omega's mark," Elder Varen said. "That cannot stand." Oscar descended the steps slowly, every word a threat. "It already stands. And so do I." Murmurs. Fear. But beneath the rage curling through his voice was something worse, confusion. He should have punished Krista for daring to touch him that night. Instead, he'd protected her. He dismissed the council, stormed out, and shut himself inside his chamber. The air stank of incense and restraint. He unbuttoned his tunic, the mark shimmered, alive under the skin. He pressed his palm over it, pain lanced through him, her pulse answering from somewhere far below. "Mine," his wolf whispered. He slammed his fist into the mirror. Glass shattered, scattering his reflection into 100 broken kings. Outside, snow began to fall. And deep within the walls, the council began to plot his ruin. The throne trembles not from war, but from one woman's heartbeat. Chapter 8. Steel clanged against steel. The morning air of the training yard split with growls. Oscar moved like a storm, sweat, blood, fury. His soldiers circled, bruised and panting. "Come again," he barked. They hesitated. None dared. "You'll kill them," a voice called. He froze. Krista stood at the gate, hair caught in the sun, a basket of herbs hanging from her arm. She looked small and unafraid. "They volunteered," he said. "They obey," she countered. "You mistake that for choice." He stepped closer, heat radiating from his skin. You test me too often. Maybe you need testing, she murmured. Something inside him snapped, not with violence, but with want. He grabbed her wrist, voice rough. You think you can tame me? Her eyes met his, calm and steady. No. I think you can choose not to be cruel. The words struck harder than any blade. For the first time in years, shame flickered across his face. He released her slowly. Leave before I forget myself. But she didn't move. Instead, she reached out, touching the faint glow through his shirt. That's not a curse, she whispered. It's a mirror. It shows what's left of your soul. He caught his breath. Her scent, wild honey and pine, wrapped around him until his resolve trembled. Later, alone, he tried to train again, but every swing of the sword echoed her voice. You can choose. By dusk, his anger had turned to silence. He realized he'd learned more from one defiant Omega than from all the wars he'd ever won. An elder's warning waits at nightfall: kill the girl or lose the crown. Chapter 9. The council chamber smelled of wax and fear. Elder Varen's voice dripped poison. Your softness endangers us all. The Pax whisper treason. End the Omega or step down. Oscar's jaw tightened. You forget whose blood rules this realm. Blood can be spilled, the elder said. Silence. Then a growl, low and dangerous. Touch her, and I'll show you how kings are buried. That night, the assassin came. A shadow through the hall, a dagger tipped with wolfsbane. But before the strike fell, Oscar's wolf reacted, snarling, unstoppable. The killer hit the wall, bones cracking under the alpha's rage. Krista woke with a scream. Stop, you'll kill him. He tried to kill you, Oscar snarled. His eyes glowed gold, his breath harsh. No one touches what's mine. She flinched, not from fear, but from the truth in his voice. He dropped the corpse, breathing hard. They'll keep coming. Then let me go, she whispered. He stared at her. If you leave, I die. The words slipped out before pride could stop them. In the quiet that followed, snow drifted through the broken window, settling on her hair like a crown. She reached for his hand, hesitant, trembling, and didn't pull away when his fingers closed around hers. Outside, unseen eyes watched from the darkness, and Varen's spies carried word to the south. The war for the throne had just begun. Love becomes the weapon his enemies will use to destroy him. Chapter 10. The snow came early that morning, pale and relentless, like the silence between them. Krista stood by the window, watching flakes fall against the glass. She looked calm. Too calm. Oscar hated it. He had ordered the horses saddled. You'll go east, he said. To the safe keep at Silvermere. You'll be guarded by my best men. Her eyes flicked to him, uncertain. You're sending me away? It's for your safety. He forced his voice steady. There are threats I can't control. She smiled faintly, the kind that could break a man's ribs without touching him. You control everything, Oscar. That's your curse. He turned away, jaw tight. You don't understand. I do, she whispered. You think keeping me away will kill the danger. But what if you're the danger? He froze. The words sank like stones. Moments later, she was gone, escorted through the gates before sunrise. Hours passed. Then pain struck. It began behind his ribs, sharp as claws. His vision blurred, breath short. The mark on his chest burned white-hot, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that wasn't his. Hers. Hayden found him on the floor, clutching his chest. Majesty. Bring her back, Oscar gasped. Now. The world tilted. He could feel her across the miles, weak, frightened, cold. Her absence carved holes in his strength. He understood then, this wasn't a bond one could sever. It was a law older than kings. By the time she returned, carried in a trembling carriage, he was half delirious, half wild. When he saw her step through the door, the pain eased instantly. He didn't speak. He simply reached for her hand, breathing again for the first time in hours. I told you, she murmured. Distance doesn't save us. He looked at her, truly looked, and the truth terrified him. He couldn't rule a world without her heartbeat inside it. The next night, a vision will tear away his last defense, destiny itself. Chapter 11. The storm had not ended. It had only changed color. Moonlight spilled through the temple windows, silver and cold, as the seer traced circles in ash. Oscar stood in the center, arms folded. You said you had answers. Speak. The old woman smiled with too many teeth. Not answers, Alpha King. Only memory. Krista sat nearby, quiet but trembling. Her mark glowed faintly, casting light across the walls. The seer's voice deepened. You carry the blood of the first Luna, the one who tamed kings. Her power was sealed for centuries until now. Oscar's breath caught. You're saying this bond is older than your throne, the seer interrupted. Love does not weaken you. It completes what your kind forgot. He stepped back. The words felt like fire and revelation all at once. Krista's gaze met his fear, wonder, something fierce behind it. What happens if I fail her? He asked. The seer looked at him with ancient pity. Then your empire burns. Silence filled the temple. Outside, the drums of distant packs echoed through the night. War calls. The Western Alphas moved again. Hayden burst in, breathless. They're forming alliances against you. They say the king is bewitched. Oscar turned toward the window. The moon hung red and heavy. Then let them come. Krista rose beside him, voice trembling but strong. If this is destiny, we face it together. He looked at her. The woman fate had chained his heart, and something in him bowed. Not as a king. As a man. But fate never asks permission. The council will strike first, through her. Chapter 12. It happened at dawn. The council chambers stood empty. Too empty. Hayden's voice echoed through the hall. Majesty, she's gone. Oscar's blood froze. What do you mean gone? They took her, sire. The council. They mean to trade her life for your crown. I got the information from a servant. A growl tore through him, raw, feral, endless. The windows shattered. His wolf surged forward, demanding blood. He shoved past the guards, fury pounding in his veins. Saddle the horses. Your Majesty, if you ride out alone. I am the army. He stormed through the valley, frost breaking beneath hoofs. His breath came in clouds, rage spilling from every motion. Visions flashed, Krista's laughter, her defiance, her warmth. Then chains. Cold. Silence. When he reached the abandoned keep, he found her cloak in the snow. Her scent lingered, violets and fear. He shifted without thought, fur bursting through skin, claws sinking into frozen earth. His roar shook the mountains. The guards who dared face him didn't live long enough to scream. Inside the hall, he found Elder Varen waiting, smug and unafraid. She was leverage, the man sneered. Nothing more. Oscar's eyes burned gold. Then you should have bargained better. He lunged, a blur of fur and fury. Bones cracked. Walls trembled. When it ended, blood dripped from his claws. His chest heaved, his mind a storm. He stumbled through the wreckage, calling her name. Krista. A faint sound, chains rattling in the dark. He followed it, heart hammering. She was there, bound but alive. Her gaze met his, wide and tear-filled. He dropped to his knees, cutting her free. They'll pay for this. Her hand trembled against his cheek. Don't lose yourself to vengeance. He pressed his forehead to hers. Too late. Outside, the wind howled through the broken doors, wild, hungry, unstoppable. The Alpha King had chosen his path, and the world would burn for it. The war for the throne begins, and mercy no longer lives in the heart of the beast. Chapter 13. Smoke rose against the night sky, thick and choking. The council's fortress burned, his doing. Oscar moved through the carnage like a shadow carved from fury. Bodies, armor, ash. Every heartbeat was a drum of vengeance. He kicked open the final door. Krista lay inside, chained to the wall, her pale dress stained crimson. For one awful second he thought she was gone. Then she breathed. He dropped to his knees, breaking her chains with a snarl. Krista, look at me. Her lashes fluttered. You shouldn't have come. I told you, he rasped, your mind to protect. Outside, soldiers shouted his name. The rebels fell silent, watching their Alpha King cradle an Omega in his arms. His hands, once stained with conquest, now trembled. He turned toward the crowd. You see her? He thundered. This is my Luna. Anyone who denies her denies me. The declaration cracked the air like thunder. The armies held their loyalty, but victory came at a cost. Krista's glow dimmed. Her healing had drained her to the edge of death. He pressed his forehead to hers. Stay with me, little flame. Her pulse flickered beneath his hand. Weak. Fading. For the first time in his reign, Oscar prayed. Not to the gods of wolves, but to love itself. And when she went still, his world broke in half. He will not surrender her to death. He will beg the moon itself for mercy. Chapter 14. The moon hung cold and merciless above the valley. Oscar carried Krista through the snow, her body limp against his chest. Her scent, violets and silver tears, clung to him. He fell to his knees at the altar of the moon elders. The stones pulsed faintly, ancient and alive. I've taken lives. I've built empires, he said hoarsely. But take me instead. Let her live. The wind whispered like a voice. You would trade your power for hers? Yes, he roared. What use is power without her to share it? Lightning split the sky. A spectral wolf appeared, massive, radiant, eyes like galaxies. The moon's spirit. Love redeems what pride destroys, it said. But redemption demands price. Pain seared through him. His strength drained, every ounce of alpha power pouring into her. He screamed until his throat tore. When it ended, he collapsed beside her, weak, shaking, mortal. But her chest rose. Once. Twice. Her eyes opened. Oscar. He laughed through tears. You came back. She touched his face gently. You shouldn't have done that. He smiled faintly. Then hate me forever. I could never. Their foreheads met beneath the cold moonlight, breaths mingling, hearts sinking once more. He whispered, forgive me for letting you go. I already did. In that moment, the bond blazed anew, fragile but unbroken. Yet far beyond the mountains, horns sounded. Rebellion rose again. He will fight once more, not for the crown, but for her heartbeat. If you've not subscribed yet, please do so because the battle doesn't end here. Chapter 15. The world smelled of steel and storm. Oscar stood on the balcony overlooking his battered kingdom. His body still trembled from the sacrifice, no alpha strength, no supernatural fury. Yet his resolve burned hotter than ever. Krista came to him, still pale but alive. They're coming, she said quietly. Thousands. He looked at her with weary eyes. Then we end it. Together. She nodded. Together. The war horns howled across the plains. Torches lit the horizon like rivers of fire. The rebels marched under Varen's black banner. Oscar mounted his horse, the once mighty king now only a man, but a man with something worth dying for. When the armies clashed, it was chaos, roars, blades, blood. He fought beside her, every strike powered by love, not dominance. She healed the wounded as fast as he could shield her. When an arrow grazed his side, she screamed his name. I'm fine, he shouted back, though pain tore through him. Their bond flared again, warm, fierce, unbreakable. He realized then, strength wasn't in claws or crowns. It was in connection. By dawn, the rebellion faltered. Varen fell beneath his own ambition, crushed by the army he betrayed. Oscar staggered through the battlefield, searching for Krista. He found her kneeling among the fallen, hands glowing over a dying soldier. When she looked up, dawn's first light crowned her like a halo. He knelt beside her, cupping her face. No more wars. She smiled softly. Then let's make peace. He kissed her slow, trembling, infinite. Around them, the packs howled, not for blood, but for rebirth. The Alpha King had lost his power, but gained his soul. The sun rose on a new reign, forged not by dominance, but by love. Chapter 16. The smell of smoke came before the shouting just when he thought the battle is over. Oscar stood in the council wing, his voice echoing through the marble halls. Where is Quincy? No answer. Only the sound of boots are running the wrong way. Hayden burst through the doors, blood streaked down his arm. Sire, it's your beta. He's opened the gates. For a second, Oscar didn't understand. Quincy? His brother in arms? The wolf who'd sworn loyalty under the full moon? Impossible, he whispered. But then the roar of enemy horns shattered the night. By the time Oscar reached the courtyard, chaos reigned. Torches, swords, betrayal burning hot enough to melt the stone. Quincy stood among the rebels, his sword dripping with pack blood. "You think she's your salvation," Quincy shouted, voice breaking. "But she's your ruin. She bewitched you." Oscar's heart cracked. "I saved your life a dozen times, Quincy. And this is how you repay me. I'm saving our world." Their wolves collided in midair, two forces of fury and heartbreak. Claws tore through armor, teeth flashed, growls filled the night like thunder. They crashed into the temple steps, blood mixing with the rain. "Look around you, Oscar." Quincy gasped, shoving him off. "Everything burns because of her." Oscar froze. Flames licked the towers. Screams rose from the barracks. The fortress, his empire, was dying. But he saw something else too. Krista, in the distance, helping the wounded, her hands glowing through the smoke. Not destruction. Healing. He turned back to Quincy, his voice low, broken. "You don't see her. You only see her fear." Quincy hesitated. That hesitation cost him. Oscar's claws sank deep, ending it swiftly. He knelt beside the fallen Beta, chest heaving, blood on his hands. "Forgive me." But there was no forgiveness in Quincy's eyes, only betrayal frozen in death. Oscar lifted his gaze to the sky as fire devoured his fortress. The kingdom he built on fear now fell to ashes. And deep inside him, something whispered that this ruin, was what he'd been running from all his life. The flames will take more than walls. They will take her and leave him hollow. Chapter 17. Smoke stung his throat. Every breath burned. Krista's scream cut through the chaos. "Oscar." He turned, but too late. A rebel blade flashed. She was surrounded. Hayden fought through the crowd, but they were outnumbered. Oscar's wolf surged, but his strength, his curse, was gone. He forced his way forward, slashing, clawing, desperate. "Krista." A soldier struck his shoulder. Pain ripped through him. He fell to one knee, gasping. The world blurred in red and silver. Through the smoke, he saw her dragged into the shadows, kicking, clawing, calling his name until her voice vanished. He ran until his legs gave out. But when he reached the western gate, all he found was her pendant, a silver crescent, cracked in half. He picked it up with shaking hands. "No, no, please." For the first time since his coronation, he wept. Hayden found him kneeling in the dirt. "Majesty, we have to move." Oscar shoved him away. "Go. Save who you can. But go." When the battlefield emptied, only the wind answered. He stumbled back into the temple ruins. His reflection in the shattered glass looked human. Broken. Weak. He'd given up his power to save her, and now she was gone. He sank to the floor, his voice hoarse. "I thought I could protect her. I thought love would be enough." The bond inside him flickered like a dying flame. Her heartbeat, once constant in his chest, faded into silence. He whispered to the moon, voice raw and shaking. "If I've angered you, take me. Don't let her pay my price." The night stayed silent. And when dawn came, it found him chained, both by guilt and by iron. Bridge in the darkness of loss, only one sound will break him, the echo of a heartbeat that shouldn't exist. Chapter 18. Time lost meaning. He didn't know how long he'd been there, days, weeks, maybe centuries. The dungeon walls wept with moisture, chains dug into his wrists. He sat in the dark, staring at nothing. The guards stopped speaking to him. The war above raged on. He couldn't feel her anymore. The mark over his heart was cold. Dead. Sometimes, he whispered her name just to hear it echo. "Krista." He imagined her smile, her defiance, her hands trembling when she healed him that first time. He'd promised to protect her and failed. Just like he failed every soul he'd ruled through fear. When the Moon Elder finally appeared, shrouded in mist and silver light, Oscar didn't raise his head. "You again," he murmured. "Come to mock the fallen king?" The Elder's voice was soft as wind. "You begged for her life once. Now you beg for her peace." "I beg forgiveness," he said. "For building an empire on the pain of others." For losing the only soul who saw me as more than a monster. The elder's eyes glowed faintly. Do you understand your lesson now? He laughed, a sound of ashes. Yes. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that makes power worth having. Silence stretched. Then something. A pulse. Faint. Fragile. Familiar. His breath caught. He pressed his hand to his chest. The mark glowed, soft, golden, alive. No, his voice trembled. That's impossible. The elder smiled faintly. The bond never dies, Alpha. It only waits to be answered. Oscar rose to his feet, chains rattling. The cold air shifted, carrying the faintest scent, violets. His heart pounded. One heartbeat in his chest, another answering in the distance. She was alive. He sank to his knees, laughter and sobs tangled together. Moon above, you gave her back. The elder vanished, leaving only her whisper, then find her, before destiny takes her again. Oscar looked up toward the narrow window. The first light of dawn touched his face. And for the first time in forever, he smiled. One heartbeat leads him back to her, but the world will make him bleed for it. Chapter 19. Silence. That was all that remained after the fire, the betrayal, and the breaking. The world felt hollow, an echo of the kingdom he once ruled. Chains no longer bound him. Guilt did. He walked barefoot across the ashes of what used to be his fortress, his steps crunching softly. His strength was gone. His wolf, the beast that once defined him, lay dormant inside, a ghost beneath his skin. But then it came a pulse. Faint. Gentle. Alive. It wasn't his own heartbeat. Oscar froze. His breath caught. The air shimmered with warmth that didn't belong in this ruin. It wrapped around him like a forgotten melody. His chest ached, and before he could stop it, tears spilled down his face. Krista, he whispered, his voice cracking on her name. The mark over his heart burned again, slow, steady, like the glow of sunrise breaking through eternal night. His knees gave out, and he pressed a trembling hand over it. And then he felt her. A soft thrum of life, distant yet undeniable. Her heartbeat answered his. Each pulse steadied his breath, filling him with warmth. The bond they'd thought broken flared back to life, fragile but fierce. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. It startled him. His wolf stirred not with rage, not with hunger, but with grief and reverence. She's alive, the beast murmured within him. And she calls for you. He sank to the cold floor, clutching his chest as light rippled across his skin. For ghosted along his arms silver now, not black. His claws emerged, sharp but calm. His reflection in the shattered marble showed a changed man. The Alpha King was gone. In his place stood something gentler. Stronger in spirit. Weaker in might. And, for the first time free. He lifted his head to the open sky and whispered, I understand now. The wind shifted, carrying the distant scent of violets, the scent of home. Oscar's lips trembled into a faint smile. Power without mercy is rot, he murmured. But mercy is the heart that keeps power alive. He stood, every motion heavy yet reborn. His soldiers, those few who remained loyal, emerged from the ruins. Their eyes widened as they saw him, silver-eyed, calmer than ever. Majesty, one breathed. Your wolf is awake, Oscar finished softly. And wiser than before. He turned toward the mountains, toward the place where her heartbeat called. We ride at dawn, he said, voice steady. Not for vengeance. For peace. And as the first light bled across the horizon, Oscar knew this was not the return of the Alpha King. It was the birth of something greater. The world had burned him clean. Chapter 20. The morning air was sharp, laced with frost and smoke. Oscar stood before the dungeon gates, the same gates where his own chains had rattled. Now he carried the keys. The guards stepped back as he approached. His voice was low but commanding. Open them all. They hesitated. Even the rogues, sire? He nodded. Especially them. The iron doors screeched open one by one. From the darkness, prisoners emerged, wolves from rival packs, deserters, thieves, even those who once plotted his death. Some cowered, expecting execution. Others glared, waiting for wrath. But Oscar only said, "No one leaves here in chains today." A murmur rippled through the crowd. One scarred rogue spat, "Why free us now, king? Need more bodies to burn." Oscar met his gaze. "No," he said simply. "I need hearts that still remember what it means to fight for something pure." He tossed the man his old sword. The rogue hesitated, then took it. By midday, the ruins of the fortress swelled with sound. Armor clanged, fires rekindled, wolves gathered in cautious truce. Loyal soldiers stood beside former traitors. And among them walked Oscar, no longer the untouchable king, but the man who had bled for his people. He found Hayden near the armory, overseeing supplies. "We don't have the numbers for a full assault," Hayden warned. "Varen's citadel holds 10 times our strength." "Then we don't march for conquest," Oscar said quietly. "We march to end this." Hayden frowned. "And if they refuse peace?" Oscar's jaw tightened. "Then I'll bleed to prove it's real." He climbed onto the ramparts, looking out at the assembled crowd. Thousands of eyes turned to him, wolves, humans, rogues, omegas. Enemies and allies alike. "I once ruled through fear," Oscar began, voice carrying over the wind. "I believed obedience was loyalty and silence was peace. I was wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I've lost everything, my power, my pride, my brothers. But if losing them means finding what truly matters, then I have gained more than any crown could give." The crowd shifted. The rogues watched warily, but none left. "I free you not as your king," Oscar said, "but as a man who's done with the chains we all forged together. The world doesn't need more rulers. It needs more healers." From somewhere in the crowd, a voice shouted, "And if we fall?" Oscar smiled faintly. "Then let it be for peace, not pride." By dusk, the fortress was alive again, banners of white and silver fluttering where black once hung. Krista's heartbeat pulsed faintly through the bond, guiding him, steadying him. He stood at the stables, running his hand along his horse's mane. "We ride at first moonrise," he told Hayden. "To war?" "No," Oscar said softly. "To home." Hayden frowned. "Home." Oscar's gaze lifted to the stars. "Where she waits." Where it all began. He could feel her heartbeat growing stronger, closer. The wolves howled that night, not in rage, but in unity. And for the first time since the age of alphas began, there was hope. March toward final battle. Chapter 21. The mountains glowed silver under the rising moon. The rebel citadel stood against the night, an iron fortress perched on jagged cliffs, its towers lit by fire. Oscar's army gathered in silence, their breath misting in the cold air. No drums. No war cries. Just waiting. He sat astride his horse, cloak billowing behind him, his silver eyes fixed on the fortress that once belonged to him. The weight of history pressed down like stone. Hayden rode beside him. "They'll expect you to attack." "I won't," Oscar said. "Not unless they leave me no choice." He raised a white flag. "Send a messenger." The wolf chosen was young, a trembling omega who'd once served in the kitchens. Oscar handed him a sealed parchment. "Tell Varen this. I offer peace. I offer a future where no pack must kneel." The boy bowed, terrified and proud. Then he rode into the dark. Hours passed. The night grew heavy. The wind howled through the ravines like ghosts whispering warnings. Finally, the messenger returned, without the letter. Oscar met his eyes. "Their answer." The boy swallowed hard. "They burned it, sire." The camp went still. Oscar nodded slowly, expression unreadable. "Then they've chosen." Hayden stepped forward. "Say the word, Majesty, and we'll tear them apart." Oscar shook his head. "No. We don't fight to destroy. We fight to end the war they keep feeding." He dismounted, drawing his sword. The silver blade gleamed under moonlight. "No victory tonight. Only peace, if the gods still allow it." He turned to the army, wolves and humans, rogues and omegas. "Tonight, we fight not for crowns or borders. We fight for the right to live without fear. We fight for the children who deserve a world without kings." The wolves howled in answer, low, mournful, resolute. Oscar lifted his gaze to the moon. It hung full and heavy, casting the battlefield in silver fire. He felt Krista's heartbeat again, strong and clear now. She was alive. Watching. Waiting. He whispered into the night, "Stay with me, little flame. Just one more dawn." And then the sound came. The gates of the rebel citadel thundered open. Armies poured out like rivers of black water, torches blazing. The earth trembled beneath their charge. Oscar raised his sword high. "Hold the line." The first clash echoed across the mountains. Steel met steel, growls filled the night. Blood and moonlight mingled in a dance older than the crown itself. Through the chaos, Oscar's wolf surged within him, slower, wiser, no longer blinded by rage. He fought not as a tyrant, but as a protector. Every strike, every parry was measured, purposeful. When he cut down a rebel, he whispered, "I'm sorry." When he shielded a fallen soldier, he said, "Live." And through it all, he kept hearing her voice, soft, distant, steady. "Don't forget who you are." The battle raged on, neither side yielding. The moon hung high, unblinking. At last, Oscar stood at the front, bloodied and breathless, staring at Varen across the field. The rebel leader sneered. "You should have stayed dead, King." Oscar's grip tightened. Chapter 22. The battlefield was silent except for the rain and the groans of the wounded. Smoke coiled upward, thin as ghosts. Oscar stood at the center, blood on his hands, lightning trembling across the sky. He could see Krista now. She lay bound near the fallen altar, too still, too quiet. His heart thudded painfully. And from the shadows, Quincy stepped forward. His beta. His brother in arms. The man who had once sworn to die for him. Quincy's eyes burned gold with betrayal. "You chose her over everything." "Over me. Over the crown." Oscar didn't reach for his sword. "I chose life." "You're weak." Quincy's claws extended, dripping with silver. "I should have killed you the moment she touched you." Oscar's wolf growled low, but not from rage. From sorrow. He stepped closer, calm despite the tension that hummed through the earth. "Then do it," he said softly. "If killing me will give you peace, take it. But I won't fight my own anymore." Quincy hesitated. The rain hit his face, mingling with tears he pretended not to shed. "You don't mean that." "I do," Oscar whispered. "I've killed too much for power. I won't kill for forgiveness." The lightning cracked and Quincy lunged. Their bodies collided, claws slashing, blood spilling into the mud. But Oscar didn't strike to wound. He blocked, parried, stumbled. When Quincy's hand drove toward his throat, Oscar caught it, then dropped his blade entirely. He met his beta's gaze. "You're not my enemy. The curse is." The mark on his chest pulsed, gold bleeding into the silver storm. A wave of light burst outward, washing across the battlefield. Quincy screamed, his wolf convulsing, then fell to his knees, eyes clearing, fury dissolving. What did you do?" "I freed us," Oscar said quietly. The curse of violence that haunted his bloodline cracked, splintered, and dissolved into the rain. For the first time, the bond between Alpha and Pack wasn't built on fear, it was choice. Before the king could make a next move, Varen had disappeared. Krista gasped behind him, her pulse returning, the faint glow of healing wrapping her body. Oscar turned, staggered toward her. "You're safe now." She smiled faintly. "You always were a fool for drama." He laughed through his tears and gathered her into his arms. Around them, wolves knelt one by one, not in obedience, but in reverence. The rebellion was over. The war had ended. And for the first time in his reign, Oscar felt human. He sank to his knees, holding her tight as dawn broke through the clouds. "It's done," he murmured, voice raw. "The kingdom's free." Krista pressed her forehead to his. "Then so are you." He collapses into her arms alive, not as a king, but as a man reborn. Chapter 23. 3 days later, the world smelled different. Cleaner. Smoke still lingered, but beneath it was something purer, like soil after rain. Renewal. Oscar stood atop the rebuilt terrace of the fortress. Below, the packs had gathered rogues, nobles, betas, healers, all waiting. Hayden approached, brow furrowed. They expect another coronation. Another decree. Oscar nodded slowly. Then let's give them something they've never seen before. He turned to the crowd, voice low but steady. For years, you called me Alpha King. You bowed because I made you. But the moon doesn't belong to one wolf, it shines for all. Murmurs rippled through the courtyard. From this day, Oscar continued, no pack will kneel to another. The Dominion will be ruled by a council, each region, each voice, equal. I'll lead, but I will not command. A stunned silence followed. Then applause. Then howls. Krista appeared beside him, dressed in white silk stitched with silver threads. Her eyes met his soft, proud. You're really doing this, she said. He smiled. Power nearly destroyed me. Maybe sharing it will save us all. She reached for his hand. And who saves you, Oscar? You do, he said simply. Below them, the packs formed a circle, marking the first united gathering since the wars began. It wasn't a ceremony of subjugation, it was communion. A kingdom reborn from ashes. That evening, when the torches lit the terraces, Hayden brought news. The people are calling it the Moon Alliance. Oscar chuckled. Then may it outlive me. He stood under the rising moon, feeling its light soak into his skin. The weight that once ruled him was gone, replaced by quiet strength. For the first time, he wasn't a ruler trying to hold the world together. He was part of it. Krista joined him at the balcony. Tomorrow, she said, they want a coronation. Not just for you, for us. He turned to her, eyes warm. Then tomorrow, the world will see what love can rule. Coronation night approaches, and with it, the promise of a new kind of crown. Chapter 24. The night of the coronation shimmered beneath a full silver moon. No velvet thrones. No gilded halls. The ceremony took place in the courtyard, open, honest, under the sky that bound them all. Krista stood at the center, her gown trailing like liquid moonlight. Oscar faced her, bareheaded, armor traded for a simple tunic embroidered with the crest of unity, the crescent moon encircling a heart. Hayden stepped forward, carrying 2 crowns of silver entwined with wildflowers. The air was still. Every wolf watched in silence. Krista lifted 1 crown and set it upon Oscar's head. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but awe. I crown you not in power, she said softly, but in peace. Not to rule, but to guide. Oscar's throat tightened. He took the 2nd crown and placed it gently upon her hair. I crown you Luna Queen, he whispered. Not because the bond demands it, but because my heart does. Their eyes met, wolf and healer, tyrant and savior. The crowd erupted in howls that echoed through the mountains. Oscar pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. You were the only thing I ever got right. She smiled, tears glittering. Then promise me you'll stay right this time. I swear it, he murmured, and kissed her. The moon flared brighter, its light wrapping them in silver fire. Around them, the wolves knelt, not in submission, but devotion. The curse was broken. The kingdom healed. When the dawn finally broke, the once feared Alpha King walked hand in hand with his Luna Queen through gardens that had begun to bloom again. Children with the moon blood mark laughed and played among the roses, their laughter carrying into the morning air. A traveler passing by the gates asked one of the guards what tamed the Alpha King. The guard smiled faintly. Debt brought him here. Love made him stay. Oscar turned his face to the sunrise, his fingers intertwined with Krista's. He began believing control made him God. He ended knowing surrender made him whole. Years later, peace no longer felt like a fragile dream. It breathed in every corner of the rebuilt kingdom, in laughter, in song, in the soft rustle of leaves under a golden dawn. The royal gardens had grown wild again, just as Krista wanted. Silverleaf vines climbed the white stone arches, and the air shimmered with the scent of rain and jasmine. Among the flowers, children ran barefoot, howling, laughing, glowing faintly with the moon blood mark that pulsed beneath their skin. They were born of peace, not power. Born to love, not to rule. Oscar stood at the balcony, watching them tumble across the grass. His once dark armor was long gone. He wore linen now, simple and unadorned, his crown forgotten somewhere in a chest. The wolf within him no longer raged, it watched, quiet and proud. Krista's laughter carried through the garden as she chased the smallest boy through a hedge of moonflowers. If you break that stem again, Oren, your father will make you weed the whole garden." The boy giggled, golden eyes flashing. "Father never punishes me." Oscar smirked. "He might start today." She glanced up, amusement dancing across her face. Even after all the years, her beauty was still untamed, gentle, wild, ageless. She had become the living proof that love could rule where power failed. He descended the steps to meet her, hand brushing her waist as she turned. "They've inherited your mischief," he murmured. "And your stubbornness," she countered. Their fingers intertwined, the old bond still warm beneath their skin, not as a burn now, but a comfort. Every night, the moon rose above the palace, and every night, its glow rested on their joined hands. It had marked them once in pain. Now it blessed them in peace. That afternoon, a traveler arrived at the gates, a scholar from the southern clans, gray-haired and curious. He had come to see the legend for himself, the Alpha King who chose love over war. The guards, loyal wolves with silver-stitched tunics, bowed as the traveler approached. He peered through the open gates at the sight of Oscar, kneeling to help a child tie a ribbon around a sapling. The traveler frowned, whispering, "That is the Alpha King? The one who conquered 7 realms." One guard smiled faintly. "He was." The traveler turned to him. "What tamed him? No beast that fierce should ever soften like that." The guard's eyes softened. "Debt brought him here. Love made him stay." At sunset, the palace bells tolled softly. Oscar walked the garden paths alone, as he did each evening. He paused by the oldest tree, a white willow that Krista had planted after the war. Beneath its sweeping branches, a single plaque rested, "For what we owe and what we love." He touched it gently. "I thought I'd rule forever," he murmured to the air. "But you taught me, ruling means serving." Behind him, Krista's voice floated softly, "And loving means surrendering." He turned, smiling as she joined him, her hair glowing under the fading light. They stood together as the moon rose, silver and patient, keeper of all promises. The children's laughter drifted toward them, and somewhere beyond the walls, wolves howled not in hunger or grief, but in harmony. Oscar drew her close, whispering, "Do you think they'll remember us kindly?" Krista rested her head against his chest. "Not for what we ruled, my love. For what we changed." The night deepened. Fireflies shimmered. The kingdom slept beneath the moon's quiet blessing. And in the garden where love had once begun in chains and ended in freedom, the Alpha King who had once conquered nations now conquered only time, by learning the simplest truth of all. Power fades. Legends crumble. But love, once chosen, never dies. And that was the story of the Alpha King who came for a debt but stayed for love. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful werewolf romances filled with emotion, sacrifice, and redemption. Like and share it with someone who still believes in fated mates and second chances. Until next time, stay wild, stay kind, and never stop believing in love.